Right. For the great election 2022.
Feels like 2023 already.
Yeah. I've got two live candidates here, both in what they're calling not district. What's the word I got?
South.
South.
Helier South.
Now they got another word now. Constituency.
Constituency.
That's the word. To make it
yes,
awkward, they got to call it.
I think we're called a super constituency, aren't we now? Is that what the phrase?
You're two of how many candidates?
11.
Oh my God.
So you can give your name as though you're knocking on somebody's door. Who are you?
I'm Nick Cornu, and I think you
Right,
should
and you are?
David Warr, and of course, I'm hoping we'll find a vote for me.
I've just stood outside this place stopping people in the street. I didn't find one person who's going to vote for anybody, never mind you two. What reaction are you getting from the public so far?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? All the feedback I'm getting is of disappointment with the parties. I mean, I think Alliance could be in for a nasty surprise. That's one of the things I would say. What's also just interesting is, we've got 4 weeks to go still. All these posters have suddenly gone up in this smorgasbord of posters, to use a nice long word. And I don't know, in 3 weeks' time, are we all going to still be paying attention to them, or do you think we're all going to go, oh my God, yawning our way away? So it's really interesting strategically as a potential candidate how you approach that. Is our posters the answer, or is social media the answer, or is knocking on doors the answer? You can't be everywhere, and it's hugely time-consuming, especially when you're trying to run a business at the same time.
What do you think, Nick?
Well, I got my banners up. I was riding around Green Street. I saw Reform had got there, and I went. And then I rushed home, got in my car, got the banners and the cable ties, and rushed up like a hot speed to get the point positions, which I did, thank goodness.
Of course, you can't target the audience. This is one of the difficulties. You've got to do the footwork. If you want to speak to people, you can do what you like on the media, social media, but you're going to meet one person of your constituency as opposed to 100 of somewhere else.
I think one of the things I would say, and was slightly frustrating at the moment, is trying to get the electoral list, the voter list from St Helier Parish Hall at the moment.
I was going to ask you that. Had you received it?
I have not received mine yet, no. And the reason being is that the form, I failed when I went away for a long weekend, maybe we'll explain that a little later, and to be told that I couldn't actually get access. They wouldn't release the data to me, even though I am a JOIC number and I'm all compliant and all these kind of things, without them having a hard copy of the form and so forth and so on. Just trying to complete that today, and then hopefully when that goes in, we will then be released, or at least that data will be released to us. But that's the challenge now. So if you go knocking on doors and there are people who aren't actually even able to vote, what is the point? You really do need to target the people who are voting. So the sooner we get over that little hurdle, the better. That will help my cause an awful lot.
Same for you, Nick?
Well, I've done some research. It was
Because you've done
very boring.
You've done this patch before. You're familiar with it.
I know, as in military terms, I know the ground.
Right.
I know how places connect, and I know where people are. I know the lobster holes where the people who vote and who do not vote, and I know the people who are unfriendly as well. And I met one last night.
Did you?
Yes, that's
it doesn't show. The bruise is quite well covered.
Well, there we are. Yeah, psychologically perhaps, but never mind.
We've sort of touched on this beforehand, but how many doors, if you knew, you know how many doors there are, so you know where the constituency is, you know the parameters, you know the boundaries. How many actual doors do you reckon that is to knock on? Have you got it worked out?
Come on, Nick,
no idea, but I know what I look at, and you can actually see, if you look down in the electoral rolls in the parish hall to be inspected. So I looked at it, and you can see that some places are only 50% registered, and other places maybe 60%. And you've then got to struggle. And then when you go knocking the doors, having determined that they are registered, you then find, of course, I'm not voting, no interest, mate, I'm sorted. I can tell you a whole load of responses from that negativity, but sometimes you get the explanation. This is very important, absolutely vital. It's a kind of almost a psychological depression. It's a result of deep alienation and visceral hatred for the political class, that they have been forgotten. And everyone knows it. Everyone knows it.
Everyone knows, but it's not all local inspired, because obviously Boris over there, a lot of people hate Boris, and it's sort of...
No, I've never had any discussion about English
No, but it's the
whatsoever.
feeling, you see, it's the hatred of politics comes from the UK, a lot of it.
But there's a big change. It's crisis time for Jersey. They all realise that, but there is a change coming. and I can feel
think
it
so?
in the wind. It's there. People are viscerally angry of all social classes. And I was surprised when I was up at Montmillet area to meet sections of the upper middle class, and I thought, I'm going to struggle here because I'm a lefty. But no, we were in total agreement about the failures of this present alliance government, and they know what it is.
We touched on it before, David, but your business enterprises are mostly in the finance centre.
Yeah.
Have you got a feeling on that? Is there a discontent related to what's happening to Jersey amongst people in the finance industry?
I mean, I haven't, to be honest with you, seen that. I think people are deeply frustrated, and I get Nick's point. And I think the interesting thing is that there are a bunch of people on Jersey for whom there is no change. Why change? You've got a nice house, you're getting your bonus, you're still able to go on your fancy holiday, etc., etc. So crisis, what crisis kind of thing. But I think increasingly that sort of the people for whom there is a real crisis, that portion of our society is growing, and it is this momentum which is kicking in. And I think the biggest thing which I find for most of the discussions I have is just not getting on with stuff. People, obviously we just had the hospital thing going on, but the housing crisis, this isn't a current problem. This is a problem that's been in the making for the last decade.
Since 1949.
Well, it may well be since 1949, but it's quite, so I think what people need is quick solutions. It's not low-hanging fruit. They just want a solution. It's not, that's also trust, but there are. But it's trust though, that's the thing, for me, people just don't trust it. I came back from a long weekend, okay, and the first thing the taxi driver said when he saw all the faces as we went down in Beaumont was all their smiling faces, and they do nothing. And I think that's so sad. And that there's that disengagement. And as a potential politician, if I do get in or whatever, that for sure is one of the things I want to change around. I was actually asked on Twitter the other day, Mr. Warr, if you were elected and you felt, and the electorate after 2 years was sick of you, would you step away? Absolutely. If I'm not adding value in any way, shape or form, I'm going to step away. I'm not going to waste my time for another 2 years.
I mean,
not achieving
Nick has a slight advantage. You were briefly a deputy for this very same constituency. I can't get that word, constituency. You were a deputy. Are you now, as they say, ready to start now? Walking or running, around to go.
Hitting the road.
Are you ready to go?
Of course, as I've always been.
Is that?
Since
do you feel
2008.
that? Do you feel that? I won't be unkind and ask you what you actually did when you were there before. That's history. Whatever you did, whatever you achieved, did you bring any propositions? All that stuff.
I wish I had, and I've got some now this time which relate to employment law because that's what I do.
Right.
So I've got some immediately which will rectify some of the problems with the current employment law.
Because I only know Dave because I've interviewed you several times on quite a wide range of issues when I look at the interviews. So I can see that how you're not blinkered on. I mean, you in our previous discussion you were talking about your business manifesto, but it's not just about business. I mean, I thought one of the most interesting was the discussion we had when you were discussing trade unions with Mrs. Southern.
Yes. Yeah,
now I thought that was illuminating because it shows. We've got sort of a theme, at least I've got a bit of a theme going. Why are there people who can say, well, I'm a business candidate, but I'm not a socialist, when there aren't clear socialist principles at stake? There are, or things that the socialists would grasp.
Yeah.
And why is it you can say, well, I'm a business person? It's no different.
Well, I think when you say, I don't know that there's a separation between this huge gulf between business owners and the workforce. I think that's, again, a thing of the past. And it may be a case in point of, we've just seen the Sunday Times rich list being published over the weekend.
Exactly.
It's extraordinary, the wealth of some of these people. I mean, it's hideous in a lot of ways. And sadly, it clouds a lot of the issues. Vast majority of business owners on Jersey are small business owners. They are making a living. They're not making super livings, being able to buy the latest Porsche or anything like that. They are making a living, which is not unfair because if you've invested hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of your money into a business, you would expect to be able to make a return on that. Otherwise, what is the point? Having said that, now with the current employment situation, we pay, the rate of pay is improved dramatically for a significant, well, all our team. It has to, because it has to keep them going to be able to pay their rent, their food bills, their childcare costs, all of those kind of things. So we all have to rise together, because if it becomes us and them, I don't have a workforce. So it's not a case of, and I've said this before, you know, we're not separate to society, we are part of society, and we see every element and every aspect of that one Jersey. And I think people have got this idea that all business people, business owners are grassroots. We're the people who have to generate the wealth that pays for social security, the taxes, ITIS. I don't know how much ITIS and tax or whatever we're going to collect this year. It's probably going to be of the order of 200,000 quid for a small business. That's what we're going to collect for the government and put back in. That's a chunk of money. And if we don't do it, who does? Who pays for all the stuff that carries
Nick,
on?
from your perspective, what's the problem? Businesses don't exist if they haven't got the people to work with them, for them. They've got to recruit. Now that has become a big issue all of a sudden, because not only are there not people around, you can't freely engage people. They got to pass all sorts of tests to be allowed in the island.
Yeah.
So the system has created a huge problem for its people. The people who create the system.
There's this massive divide between, let's call them, you know, the 1%, the very rich, the very wealthy, who run Jersey and own it, and then there's the rest. Jersey's not, as I keep saying to people when I knock the door, Jersey's run for the rich, not for working people, and that's fully understood. It brings a big smile to people's face, and
I think that's
but working people.
I think
a lot of working people have got a nice motor car. They've got all the toys of that business creates, doesn't it? And those businesses wouldn't create unless they had the workers.
Correct.
So there's a sort of a.
I've got a quote. I've got it here.
Go on.
This is one of my neighbours. She's now left the island. 2 teachers, very capable. They got fed up with Jersey, just didn't offer. And this is what she wrote back to me this morning. She says, there are 2 Jerseys. The one which benefits a small and increasingly rich population, which carefully protects its own interests, and then the rest of us, who are seen as transient. And of course, transient's important for her as teachers who came and now left because there's nothing.
I thought it was extraordinary that they got the children's commissioner, who's only here for 9 years. She won't get her qualifications on the rules as they stand. Now, you know, that is so deplorable. And the greffier left because he couldn't get his quality. He did 5 years, he wouldn't get his qualities. Well, you can't have people of that authority being dismissed just like that because there's some little stupid rule which says they have to be dismissed.
This is the system falling apart. There's all sorts of contradictions here, there, everywhere, and they're all coming into this is crisis time. And if they're not addressed, it's just going to get worse and worse. And we'll see just disintegration. And that's why we've all got to get in there and get rid of the existing deputies and get some new ones in with fresh ideas, including David's. I mean, you know, small business got a place.
What I can't understand is why is there, because you say socialists and they're the devil. Socialists are in league with the devil. And I can't feel that I'm sort of a socialist. And I can't work out why. What are they wanting to do?
They're not, though. I mean, that's the point. I think there's a balance, isn't there? There's a balance between we go down one area which is the communist route, which is government dictates everything and everybody abides by it, and that's been shown to be an absolute fraud. Right. In the long run. What we have to find is that balance between the private sector, that marketing, which gives opportunity to people. In other words, people who have nothing. I mean, this is what America was famous for, wasn't it? You could go over there to America and you could make your fortune and become somebody or whatever. And I feel like we've lost a bit of that along the way. People should be able to, if you work hard, and earn a decent living, you should be able to get to buy a house. I know that's a real challenge on Jersey at the moment, but what I'm just saying is opportunities should come from working in employment and working hard within your society, and your society should be in return providing you with opportunity. And I think the problem at the moment is with Jersey is we're losing that. We're losing it because housing costs are at such an extraordinary level. Nobody's got a plan. Well, I think I know of someone who has a plan and has an idea,
right.
And I think something dramatic can be done. But it's got to be done quickly.
The trouble is it's got to
be done quickly.
High prices on whatever it is, but especially housing, is of benefit to somebody. There's a group in the island who do benefit from high prices.
Totally. But for most of us, our house is our home. I mean, I don't look at my home and go, oh great, wow, the value of it's gone up another 100,000. Hey, I'm still living in the place.
Exactly.
I can't sell it. I can't do something with it. So for the vast majority of people, your house is your home, and so there are people obviously taking it's opportunity, isn't it? Market opportunity.
Let me address an issue which I haven't seen. It wasn't there in 2018 when I stood. It's definitely here in a big way. People are leaving this island and they've already left. Generation rent, that's the 30 year somethings, have gone or are going because they can't get on the property ladder, or the rents are so high and their wages are being eaten up. They're going elsewhere. Like the classic example was a knock on the door, unregistered, hoping to get this person. He's a 30-year-old Jerseyman. He's a roofer, self-employed. Obviously, I think he might have had some employees, but he's giving up. He's going to Manchester because some of his mates are there. And he's obviously going to have a good time. But he also can buy a house. He says, I think for 200,000, which he's saved up, presumably he gets a bit extra mortgage, and he can get 3 bedrooms. He's absolutely happy. That's what he wanted. Jersey, he's finished. We've lost.
In a country far away that begins the letter A, Australia, they've just had an election. By some degree or other, voting is compulsory. And lo and behold, they've elected what purports to be a Labour government, Australia. Now, some cynics say, well, that's the reason they don't want voting here to be compulsory, because they don't want people to vote. They don't want a change of government. Jersey has to be a secure government which isn't changing to attract the finance business, because that's what they want. Dependable. They want to, but they don't want changes of government. How do you see that? I mean,
I struggle with that. I mean, I think if people felt motivated enough and they felt things were going so badly wrong, they would get out there and vote. I don't have any hesitation in that at all. I think politicians and the political class have got a lot to answer for. You know, we have £1 billion a year, state which needs supporting and feeding and all the rest of it. And I just feel like it's removed. It seems to be removed from this island, and increasingly people feel powerless as to what they can do to change things and see anything happen. And I know for a fact that in St Helier, what have we got? 4,200 electorate, is that right?
Oh, probably like nearly up to 5,000.
5,000. How many were there 4 years ago?
There was about 5,3, I think.
So we've actually
what's happened is there's been a cull.
Yes,
of names that people
got. Yeah, I'm sure. And of course people, I mean, but you see the thing which I see, and if you talk to my team, they are Romanians, we've got Bulgarians, Latvia, the whole plethora of nations who come here from far worse economic situations to come to Jersey to try and make a living. And they, if they can at all, want to stay in Jersey. They want to stay in Jersey because they want to see a settled environment. And in some ways, one of the problems we don't see is we don't actually see how good we've got it in comparison. I'm talking about in comparison with other nations, maybe Romania and places like that, where if you hear the stories that I hear, everything is around bribery. You have to bribe everybody to get anything done and all the rest of it. We haven't come to that yet. We are in a difficult position because obviously we're keep going about the cost of housing and inflation, etc., etc. But if we can just pull back a little bit, if we can just pull back and get people at the bottom levels more engaged and feel like there's more in it for them, then surely we can move to. That's why I say we're better off together. We are better together.
The statistics are this: 70% don't vote. We know that, and that's always been the situation. Who are the 70% who don't vote? It's essentially the working class, and David will discover that when he goes and knocks the doors of social housing, and he will hear the reasons and arguments, and that's where I say there's this kind of visceral hatred of the political class. They know that they're forgotten, and sometimes I can break the ice and get those people to say, I represent change, vote for me, and they want to be warmed up, they want to be given something, they want to be reassured that change is possible, but they know also they're being completely forgotten.
We've got several weeks to develop these discussions.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to know especially what the public are saying to you. That's what we want to do. We can't do it all today. Is there some illumination out there to be gained, or is it just?
I'm waiting to be. I'm waiting to be illuminated. I think it's interesting. When you, as I'm going to go around over the next week or so, I'll start putting my literature through the letterboxes and meeting people, putting my posters up and various things like that. What's really interesting already, isn't it interesting how Reform have had their posters defaced? you know, a couple of leading politicians have had their posters defaced.
Have they?
Already. Now I don't know what that's.
There's an oversized labby one outside,
Well, yeah, which has been broken in half.
Yeah,
You know, doesn't that? You know, I know you can complain about these things, but that in some way says something about the feeling out there, doesn't it? That people feel like the only form of action they can take is by defacing a poster. That's pretty.
Well,
that's a bad sign for
I
certain
think
parties.
if that was a political comment, that would be optimism in my mind, but I just think it's vandalism. But there we are. It's just a notice goes out. They want to say, "Oh, notice, let's destroy it."
It is vandalism, but there's something probably behind it. Okay, you can say it was the drunks last night, but then they've got something going on in their head, and it says something. We hate politicians, and it doesn't really matter whether it's Reform or Russell Labby. We'll just pull it down because we just don't like politics.
We could go on talking about it. I'm going to stop because that's 20 minutes we've had.
Okay, sure.
And we can carry on in this room, but there's lots more to come yet because this is going to go on for weeks. You're going to grow beards. You're going to look aged and tired in a few weeks' time. So,
Hope not.
you know, thank you for your time today.
No problem at all.
Yeah.